Hello and welcome to the 47th episode of the Accountant Success Secrets podcast. I'm Philippa Haynes of Insight 101.
And I'm Mark Lee of Bookmark Lee. Every week on the podcast, we showcase another accountant or bookkeeper who's been running their own practice for a good few years and who we think can inspire and encourage other accountants and bookkeepers in practice around the UK.
Yep, we asked them to share their stories, including the highs, the lows, and what they've learned along the way. Our aim is to provide some fundamental insights for you, our loyal listener. If you'd like to share your story in a similar way, do please get in touch with us. We're now taking bookings for late April, would you believe?
Astonishing, isn't it? Anyway, Today we are delighted to introduce Lara Manton, who's had her own bookkeeping practice since 2011 and has been on the advisory council of the ICB for the last 2 years. Having been diagnosed with ME as a teenager, Lara knew that working long hours was never going to be an option. And determined to make her practice work, she embraced technology to maximize efficiency and leverage her time. Now she applies that same approach to help mostly service-based businesses to thrive by providing, apparently, and I'm sure it's the case, exceptional bookkeeping services and leveraging the latest technology. Welcome to you, Lara.
Morning all, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
and of course, Lara, why walk when you can run? We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But just before we start, a word about our sponsor, Pinnacle Global, a trusted outsourcing partner with well over 120 clients around the UK and Ireland. Pinnacle's CEO, Myalgic is a chartered accountant based in London, and he has a passion to encourage innovation and excellence in the accounting profession, hence sponsoring this podcast. So Pinnacle has offices in the UK and offshore delivery centres across India, employing over 250 high quality staff. With strong focus on quality assurance, Pinnacle has helped many UK accounting firms to scale their capacity and operations. So to find out more, please visit www.pinnacleoss.co.uk. You'll also find the link online wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Indeed. Also supporting the podcast is the Tax Advice Network. Their website enables accountants to choose specific specialist tax advisors for general tax support or for help across any of over 100 areas of tax. It's free to use and you can check it out at findataxadvisor.online, where you can also register to get their weekly tax tips written especially for general practitioner accountants.
Yep, indeed. So right, back to Lara. As you know, we're aimed to keep the podcast to 30 minutes and we have some key questions that we like to ask. So I'm going to hand over to Mark to kick off.
Thank you. I'll start by asking you, Lara, how and why did you come to set up your own accountancy your own bookkeeping practice? Sorry.
Well, you've kind of alluded to it already there, Mark, with my kind of backstory. When ME kind of greatly affected me as a teenager, and I knew I couldn't go into full-time employment. I had some part-time employment where I was practice manager of a health clinic. And as part of that, I did the bookkeeping and other things around that. And I'd always been a numbers-based person. Before I kind of had to drop out, I was taking maths, advanced maths, biochemistry and biology as my A-levels. So it was that was always my background. My dad was a scientist. My brother works for JP Morgan. We're that kind of family of backgrounds. So when I was talking to the accountant at the practice, and I was relocating. I'd met my husband, as he is now, and relocating, and I was like, what can I do? I'm going to be in a new area. I know I'm not going to kind of be able to work full time. At that point, I didn't drive, and so the accountant said, well, you're good with numbers. You've got the basis of bookkeeping. Why don't you look to do your exams? So I kind of did some research into it. And came across the ICB and found I could do the self-study route and I could do that kind of whole thing, and spent obviously about a year sitting up to kind of MICB, so level 3 qualifications, and kind of kicked it off with the intention. I had a couple of kind of family friends that were running small businesses. My previous employer said, well, we could keep you on as the bookkeeper. The accountant that encouraged me said, look, I've got a few other clients that could do with some bookkeeping as well. And obviously cloud-based wasn't really there then, but there were a few things starting to come to the market. So free agent was just about launching and coming into the market. So my first couple of clients with the accountants on free agent, obviously kind of doing Sage files, sending them backwards and forwards and those kind of things. It always makes people laugh. I had to take a separate computerized exam back then. It was this completely different module because you did everything on T-sheets and Excel, and then you had a Sage module, your computerized module on Sage, to get your, what then was, I think we were like CB dip, so computerized bookkeeping diploma, as well as your thing. So nowadays it's obviously all encompassed in one. And I kind of went around the town that I was in and kind of knocked on a few doors and introduced myself and picked up a few clients from that, kind of saying, oh, do you need some bookkeeper? Do you need some help with it? So there was a little restaurant that I used to go in one morning a week and sit through all his paperwork and sift through and sit there and put it all on Sage and bits like that. And then kind of, as I said, did a bit more remote things. I was using free agent. I used Xero quite early on, sort of 2013, because it then fitted with my lifestyle better. I could work around when I needed to be. I didn't have to go into clients if I wasn't feeling well. I could do things when I wanted. So it kind of grew from only being able to do a couple of hours a day. Or I think there was a thing, I saw a Facebook memory post the other day that said, oh yeah, I've managed 10 hours work this week. And that was kind of a big thing. And then obviously as my health has improved and as I've gone on, I've kind of been able to grow the practice alongside it and sort of to the stage it is now. But that's why I kind of use the software and I'm always looking for ways to kind of increase my efficiency without increasing the energy I use. Cool. So that's kind of why I've delved more into software.
I get that. That makes enormous sense. And you alluded to the fact that you had relationships with some accountants quite early on. How did you develop those relationships and avoid them thinking you were trying to nick their clients or do the work that they were previously doing? Has that been an issue at all?
From my perspective, I love doing the bookkeeping. So some people have come to me and said, why don't you do self-assessment? Why don't you do year end? I could do these things, but I haven't found the enjoyment in doing them. So what I've always said is I don't actually do the tax. I don't do the payroll. I don't do that side of things. So when I'm working with accountants, and I have a good working relationship with 5 or 6 accountants now, and it's a case of I can take the bookkeeping off your hands and we can make sure that the bookkeeping is done to a high level. You know what's going on. We can obviously converse through the year, make sure that the client's happy, you're happy. It makes your life easier when you're doing tax planning and all the rest of it as well. And then I know as well, I've got a second set of eyes looking at it at year end. I don't have to, I can keep up with what's going on in the bookkeeping world without keeping up with all the tax changes and knowing what's going on and that kind of thing. And equally, as a bookkeeper, there's some things I can't do. I can't give financial advice. I can't do that tax planning side of things. So for my clients, it means I've got accountants that I can then refer on to say, right, okay, you've got to this stage, you need to be thinking about things. Or I can kind of say to them, I think you need to be having a chat with someone your business has grown, or you need to. So it works both ways. They can kind of, especially most accountants I work with may have a small team, but they don't have a bespoke bookkeeper within that team. So they can outsource that work to me, or we can work in a relationship way with their clients, with them still doing the year-end stuff, which I know most accountants would rather do than the bookkeeping.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm going to sort of talk a little bit or mention the people or the businesses that you work with, because they are slightly different, aren't they? You know, I know that you are quite international. You know, everybody talks about entrepreneurs, but from what I know about you and the work that we've done previously, you know, you really do work with really fast growing businesses and help them to sort of put in place a structure. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how you got into that as well?
Yeah, well, one of my biggest clients has been a client for over 10 years now, and he's had a period of growth over the last 4 or 5 years. So I came in to clean up a bit of a mess because he was trying to do it all himself, and he got a bit muddled, and he does a lot of currency transactions, and he's got a very small team, but an international team. And I really enjoyed working with him. I really found kind of fitting into part of that team, offering more kind of the virtual finance office side of things, rather than just being the bookkeeper at the end of the email, kind of liaising, being involved with his day-to-day. And he had a business advisor, actually, and he kind of said to me, I really like working with you. Would you be interested in working with a few more of my clients? And this business advisor, he's a chartered accountant, but he specializes in startups, angel investors, all those kind of things. So I got put into this world of, can you go and speak to these clients? Can you, and I've really enjoyed like those rapidly scaling businesses, working with them, because they always think like the last thing a business thinks about is its finance systems. And it's like, we're using Xero, but we're actually not using Xero. We're just doing the compliance on Xero and we're doing everything on G Sheets. And I was like, you're turning over like 10 million and you're doing everything on G Sheets and just keying it into Xero at the end of the month. That's not how this should work. Because you're just creating more work for everyone. You're not understanding what's going on. You're not seeing things. You've got 4 versions of that G Sheet because 3 people are in it at the same time and it's all saved on different, and all these kind of things. So I've with as well as my practice, I run the ACE Excel side of things, which came out of my motto of accuracy, continuity, and efficiency. I came up a couple of years ago when doing an awards nomination pack. But yeah, so I've turned that into more of a consulting basis for these. I mean, we're talking international multi-million pound turnover companies, one of which was in like London's top 50, Forbes's top 50, or Deloitte's top 50 growing businesses in London. Kind of, we're talking about like, my biggest client is 8 verging on 9-figure turnover. So helping them, so they'll have a finance team in place, they'll have auditors, they'll have accountants, they'll have everything, but what they don't have is someone that knows the systems inside and out and can kind of say to them, well, that's great, but why are you doing it manually? Why aren't you importing it or linking it, or why are you doing all these things separately? So I've worked, and I've really enjoyed that, because you can see, like, when someone comes to you and says, like, I've had a couple of clients where they've had someone leave their finance team and they've still been able to run the finances better because they've had the systems in place. And sometimes they're the same systems they had at the start, they just didn't know how to use them properly because no one had ever really sat down and said, this is how you get the best out of it. So that comes from years of experience of, and still am doing the day-to-day, processing every transaction, doing all the bookkeeping side of things. And I've been lucky enough that that's then moved into actually consulting for some of the software companies in the space, and kind of saying, this is what bookkeepers want. This is what I think you can do to help my clients, and giving them data, kind of regular feedback as well on product design, on all sorts of different things.
Yeah. So what have you learned then? Because I mean, you've obviously gone through quite a number of years of sort of getting set up and learning how you work yourself because of the ME and then moving into the kind of consultancy space too. What are some of the things that you've kind of learned, do you think, that would be useful for others to hear?
I think one of the things is to not get pulled into different directions, and don't be afraid to say no. So if you love, I always say, I love bookkeeping, and as I say, people have asked me, why don't you do your self-assessments exam? I could, but I've never found joy in that. Yes, I could probably add more services, add more money, add whatever on, but it's never interested me. And I see people that are like, right, I'm going to set up and I'm going to do every exam in the world, and I'm going to have all these software and all this thing. And then I'm like, well, yeah, but do you enjoy doing that? Do you enjoy? I mean, I've offboarded a couple of sole trader clients recently, because I've come to the point of, yes, you've been with me for years, and I've held on to them because I felt bad, rather than because I enjoy doing it and I feel that that's my area. So I've had to kind of learn to kind of say no, and learn to kind of say it's okay to kind of, I've got a good enough network now that I can say, right, okay, if you want to be on that piece of software, or you want to do that, or you want tax advice, or you want whatever, I can go send you to someone I know and you can have a chat with them, rather than feeling like I have to do everything and I'm kind of a worse practice because I don't do tax and I don't do payroll. So I think there's a real, that takes kind of confidence in your business and in your skills. And I think it's really easy, especially
and understanding yourself, and knowing that if you don't enjoy something, all that's going to happen is you're going to feel like you're not doing your best with it. Your heart isn't in it.
So if your heart's not in it, then you're not going to provide your clients with the best service. So that's what I say. Clients come to me, and I'm obviously very heavily Xero based, and clients will come to me on other software, and it's like, yes, I could do it. Technically, I could do it, but I know that in order to offer you my best service, I'm going to do that on a specific set of software. So why should you pay me to get a slightly worse service because I'm not comfortable using that software and I'm not in there, when there's people that are? And I think that's the great thing, especially about being part of the ICB, but I think that's the great thing about the industry as a whole, is that we all know people that we can refer backwards and forwards without any kind of animosity in there, or without any kind of, there's a lot of collaboration happening. So I know that if someone comes to me and I don't feel that it's the right fit now, I will send them elsewhere. But that takes a lot. Kind of, you at the beginning you take on everything, and then you kind of have to work out what you do and don't like, and kind of make those difficult decisions to say, actually, no, this isn't working. And sometimes those difficult decisions are, actually, you're not going to pay me what I think I should be paid, or my prices have increased, or actually I've got this level of expertise and you're not willing to acknowledge that, and actually maybe we're not the right fit. So it does take quite a lot of kind of stepping up in practice, I think, especially as a sole practitioner. And the other thing I've had is kind of people say to me, well, why don't you grow a team? You could have a fantastic practice if you had 6, 7, 8 people under you. You've got the things. And from my perspective, again, part of it comes back to the energy. I don't want to be spending energy managing people. I want to be spending energy supporting my clients. And okay, I could probably have a practice and have a bigger practice and have people working under me, and I do outsource the odd bit when I'm busy and kind of support some other bookkeepers, but I've just not found, again, that's not something I've enjoyed, and I think my practice should be able to be as successful as anyone else's. And as I say, that was kind of hammered home in some regards when last May I was the first UK bookkeeper to win Xero's Small Firm of the Year. So as a sole practitioner and as a bookkeeper, winning what is quite a coveted prize if you're a Xero user. So that, I think, hopefully, I think again that's changing. The attitude's changing, and I know, Mark, you do a lot of this with your groups, but I think there's hopefully kind of not the people looking down on bookkeepers in the same way, and equally kind of that we're lower than accountants and we're just the data entry clerks, because that's not what a bookkeeper does. It forms a part of it, but obviously now with systems and things coming up, it's growing. But it's equally that if I choose to stay as a sole practitioner, what is wrong with that?
Absolutely nothing. I think that's a glorious approach, which I highly admire and recommend. And we did have a guest 2 or 3 weeks ago on the podcast who had at one point grown a bigger practice and then shrunk it down again because she realized, frankly, much as you've just said, that she was actually making less money when the practice was bigger. And she had the grief and challenge of trying to manage a team, which she didn't really enjoy doing. And I think that's not uncommon. And it's always worth anticipating how much time and effort you want to spend managing staff versus doing the work, and whether your objective is to enjoy what you do or to grow a bigger practice, and how much money you want to be making from your practice. And a lot of people, yeah, from the conversations I have with my mentoring clients, it's quite clear some of them have just found themselves in an uncomfortable position, either too small or too big. There is no one size fits all solution.
And I think if you can identify your personality profile as well, if you have enough self-awareness and know that maybe you're great with numbers, you really enjoy that part, you really enjoy talking about them, or whatever it is, versus you're not that great with people on the sort of coaching side. I mean, you've just got to understand the type of person you are, and I guess, Lara, with the ME that that has obviously run through kind of your life, you understand energy and what gives you energy and what saps your energy, and part of that is working too hard, but another part is about your personality type as well. So having said all of that, this is you've learned along the way and you're sort of doing what you want to do, but obviously we all make mistakes, don't we? So are there any that you've kind of feel like you've made that we can all learn from?
I am a bit of a people pleaser, so I am one of those, and I am bad at sales. So that's one of the things I'm trying to get better at. So I am one of those people that will chuck discounts on invoices and quotes and things like that, which I'm getting a lot better at. But over the last couple of years, when I moved away from hourly pricing and I moved to value pricing, that made sense to me, because I'm using these systems, I'm getting better. The concept made sense, but I was a bit bad at kind of going, that looks a bit too high, I'm going to stick a 50 quid a month discount on it or whatever else. So that's one of the my biggest mistakes is, and something I'm trying to fix, is kind of valuing myself as well, of kind of saying, right, okay, I know what I'm doing. I've been in this industry quite a long time. I've got some pretty good clients, and my client retention is very high as well. I can actually say to people, like, yeah, if someone comes back to me and queries a quote, I would normally go, oh yeah, well, I'll just drop that down, or I'll give you that for free, or whatever else. And I'm trying to get a lot better at kind of saying no, sticking to my guns and saying no. If you want me and you want my expertise, that is what you pay. So I think that's one of.
That's a really important points in there, Lara. The first one being, as you've got more experienced and as you're using more technology, you can do things faster. And it's one of the strongest arguments against hourly pricing is, well, you're faster, you're more efficient, but the client's paying less because you're giving them a better service. That's what hourly pricing does. Whereas if they're continuing to get the same value from you, why shouldn't they pay the same, despite the fact you're able to do it a little bit faster and a little bit more efficiently? So well done on that, and overcoming that challenge of, maybe I should give a discount, maybe I should reduce the fee. I learned something many years ago. If you reduce, change the fee, change the package, change the service. Don't just give a discount for the sake of it.
Yeah, and I think again that takes quite a lot of. Again, it comes down to not being afraid. If client says no, then they're not the right fit for you, rather than trying to kind of shoehorn your services in. And I did this last year. I said to the client, I said, you're kind of underpaying what I think you should be paying. I don't think you're going to pay, and kind of presented them quote. She went, no. She now on her 4th bookkeeper in the last year, because she's trying to find what she wants to pay, not what she can pay, what she wants to pay isn't giving her the service that she wants, but she wasn't prepared to pay for the service that she wants. So it's quite funny. The accountant messaged me and went, yeah, that's another one gone. Because she turned around to the accountant and went, oh, you're doing the bookkeeping now? And she went, well, this is my quote. And she went, can't you include it in your normal costs? And she went, no. You should have said to Lara, actually, I'll pay that because you're getting this. You've seen that what Lara was giving you for that service was worth what she wanted paying for it. And actually, you're now causing the business more issues because you've got not that you've got a limited budget. What you've put aside for your bookkeeping budget doesn't match the growing business that you have.
Did you leave the door open for her to come back sometime, or do you think she would never do that?
Well, no, yeah, I said to her, look, this is where I'm at. You've added all these things on. This is what your price will be going forwards, but I feel that you won't be prepared to pay that. And she kind of turned around and went, no, I'm not. So I think the gap of what her expectations are and what her wants are too wide.
I wonder if the accountant is charging more for sorting things out because of regular changes in bookkeepers and things being not done properly. So she's losing with one hand, and whilst she thinks she's gaining with the other.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's what I always say with working with people is I can make your I can't guarantee that I'll make your accountancy bill cheaper, but there's a good chance that I'll make that an easier process for your accountant and give you quicker numbers and better information. And occasionally it does work out that the accountant's kind of cheaper because they know they've got information they can rely on.
Or they may even be able to deliver a better service because they've got more reliable numbers and then keep the fee the same, but giving a bit more advice than they had the time to do before.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I'm hearing from our conversation is that you're really good at joining the dots, and that is a skill in itself. And when I say joining the dots, I mean talking to different people and making sure that the systems talk to each other. And making sure, if there's an issue over there, that you're kind of saying, well, why don't you do this? And obviously that's a core part of your consultancy. But I also think just in the way that you've talked about that pricing conversation, you kind of said, this is what I'm worth. This is what you've added. This is what I've added on and what you've asked for. I actually don't think you will be prepared to pay that. Rather than kind of going, this is what it is, and like feeling really scared, you've kind of gone that one step further and joined the dots and said, I don't think you will be prepared to pay that. And I think what that's done is you've joined the dots and kind of gone, is that my ideal client? Actually, in doing this process, I now realize that you're not. So I think you're very good at sort of pulling lots of different content together and sort of and finding an answer. That would be my perspective anyway. What about you, Mark? What would you find unique about Lara?
I think the fact that she's focused in the way that she runs her practice and has learned what works for her and the value that she can deliver to clients by herself, but leveraging technology in the way that she does and building on her past experiences is no doubt one of the main contributors to winning that Xero award and the other plaudits that you have. And what led you to take on the role on the ICB advisory panel, Lara?
Again, it was kind of, I felt that I had enough experience behind me to put that voice forward and make, not because ICB are obviously very bookkeeper focused, but it's about kind of having as many diverse opinions on there as possible. Like any kind of good panel, you bring together people with different opinions, different viewpoints. And I felt that maybe I had that from all the things that you've just spoken about, and I could have something valuable to add to that conversation. And it's something I've really enjoyed doing over the last couple of years, and kind of seeing what's going on behind the scenes a little bit, but equally how we can as a community bring the bookkeeping kind of to the forefront and make it as accessible and showcase what a great bookkeeper looks like.
That's wonderful. I spent 25 years on different committees at the ICAEW, and for all of those reasons, and a desire to sort of give back to the profession that had given me so much as well. And you learn so much from doing that as well as everything that you're giving. So I admire you for doing it. Well done. What should we just finish with any other secrets to your success, the secrets of your practice? Lara, anything we haven't picked up on yet?
No, I think Philippa touched on it a bit. I don't just look at the accounting side of things. If I'm doing a systems, I'm looking at what their sales systems are, what their CRM is. How does it work as a whole business, not just a finance system that stands alone? How does it make things easier for everyone in the business?
Excellent.
I'd sort of add a more emotional kind of layer onto that with a bit of a different part to the question. So I know that, as you said, when you were a teenager, you became ill, and what that meant was that all of your friends, peers, they all left to go to university and college, and you were left kind of very much alone with this illness, and you had a lot to overcome. So knowing that, what is the secret of you overcoming all of that and becoming the success that you are today? Is it just
It's
sheer
just
bloody mindedness?
Yeah, basically putting one foot in front of the other and saying, I don't have to let that define me. I can do this. I can work to my limitations and work out a business that works with me, rather than succumbing to chronic illness in that way, and allowing, what can I adapt, what can I change, where can I do things differently so that I can continue moving forwards.
Awesome. Fabulous approach. Very admirable and very wise as well. Not pushing yourself too hard and giving yourself more health issues, but working with you in those limitations, but right up to the edge, I think is what you're implying there.
It's
really,
kind of allowed you to sit back and really and look at your life and look at how you're going to live it. And that's probably where this sort of joining the dots thing came from. You know, even when you were talking about the ICB and the council, whatever, saying actually there were different types of people there, and I felt that I could come in as well. Again, joining the dots and saying what's missing and where are the gaps, which I think is fantastic. So from my perspective, a really lovely insight to finish on. And as always, I think we've kind of scratched the surface, certainly around your story, and another 30 minutes would be fantastic. But as was always the case, we need to go ensuring that everybody is left wanting more rather than less. So, you know, obviously fantastic to have you come talk to us. How can people find you if they love what they hear? How can they come and have a conversation with you?
Yep, so reach out on LinkedIn, and then I've got kind of two websites. So I've got ljmbookkeeping.co.uk for the bookkeeping side of things, and ace-xl.co.uk for more of the consulting side of things. So reach out on LinkedIn or one of those, and I'll happily have a chat.
They're looking nice, those websites.
Thanks so much, Lara. Philippa, how can listeners find out more about you and your Business Insight 101?
Yeah, well, not everybody knows what they're all about and what their strengths are and what their strategy should be. And I'm very much all about that. So I support accountants and bookkeepers to understand their story, understand their values and their ethos, and how that is brought into their business, and how actually it can become their brand, the look, the feel, the sound, all of that good stuff. So if you are looking at developing your brand and developing your marketing, give me a call. I'm on LinkedIn, and also you can find me on my website, www.insight101.co.uk. And Mark, tell us a little bit about how you support your accountants.
Well, thank you. Well, most of the accountants I support have been running their own practice for a while without co-directors or partners. They've reached that stage where they want a decent sounding board to help them feel more confident as regards their plans, their challenges, and key decisions they may be facing. And I love hearing them tell me how much better motivated or excited they feel sometimes after our one-to-one conversations. Others love the support and collaboration that I encourage through my online Soul Practice Club. Some have staff of some of the sole practitioners I work with have staff, some don't. Some use external consultants or outsource. Some it's just them, like we've just had Lara today. I'm always happy to have an initial conversation with no obligation, no strings, and no pushy sales techniques. That's really not my style. In any event, I'd also encourage you, if you're listening, well, you wouldn't hear this if you're not listening, to reach out and connect with both Philippa and me on LinkedIn. And also please follow the podcast pages on LinkedIn and now on Facebook too.
Yeah, and just before we go, we must thank our sponsor of this episode, Pinnacle Global Group, your trusted outsourcing partner. And I'm sure they're very pleased because we found out today that out of the top 25 UK accounting podcasts, we are now number 4. Anyway, talking about Pinnacle Global, do check out their website and let their CEO, Myalgic, know you heard about Pinnacle Global on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast. Whew, that sounds long.
And thanks too to the Tax Advice Network, the easiest way for accountants to reach specialist tax advisors. Remember, there's no charge for using the website findataxadvisor.online, where you can also access and sign up for their weekly tax tips written specifically for general practitioner accountants.
So if you've enjoyed this episode, please share the love online, subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or let us have your feedback directly too. It all helps to broaden the reach of the podcast. And also either contact myself or Mark if you'd like to be interviewed like Lara here. It's not scary. We need those stories. Please come forward. And if there's somebody you'd like to hear from and recommend, then we'd be delighted to hear that too.
Absolutely. Thanks so much again, Philippa, and to our wonderful guest, Lara. Until next time on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, or anywhere else we might meet online or in real life. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.